General Hospital spoilers for Tuesday, August 5th, tease that secrets are simmering just beneath the surface in Port Charles, and on this particular Tuesday, no one walks away clean. The quiet clink of cutlery at the Metro Court masked the tension sitting at Rick Lansing's table. Molly had just sat down across from him, her usual warmth now undercut by suspicion. Her father was putting on his best concerned parent mask, the one she'd seen so many times it had become almost translucent. He was asking about school, about TJ, about Christina. Too interested. Too calm. Rick wasn't just here for a pleasant father-daughter dinner. This meal was a tactic, a cover. And behind his casual questions and rehearsed smiles was the heavy weight of blackmail. Rick and Ava were in deep, tangled together in a dangerous game involving Alexis Davis and a betrayal that could burn them all. Across town, Ava Jerome stood in the soft light of her penthouse, arms crossed, face unreadable. Her mother, Delia, had dropped by unannounced. Their relationship, once frayed and inconsistent, had shifted into something surprising lately: trust. Or at least the possibility of it. Ava wasn't used to trust. But Delia had shown up for her in recent weeks in ways she never had before, not with flowers or soft words, but with loyalty and silence. This was why Ava was testing something new. "I want to help Alexis," she said, and waited for her mother's reaction. Delia blinked. Help Alexis, how? The answer was a minefield. Because helping Alexis meant lying for her. Hiding things. Ava had caught wind of how Alexis had been cooking the Cassadine estate's books. The money trail told a sordid story: hush money, paid regularly, with amounts that didn't match any legitimate expense. And Ava knew why. Alexis was desperate to keep the secret that Christina had once tried to kill Ava. Desperate enough to pay Rick. And Rick had gladly taken her money. Delia's face tightened. "You really think Alexis deserves your help?" Ava shrugged. "Maybe not. But I think it's the smartest move I can make right now." Because in Port Charles, survival was often about calculated mercy. Back at the Metro Court, Rick was pouring Molly another glass of Pellegrino, casually talking about Europe, about Croatia, even about the spa he'd heard was beautiful. 5 poppies, wasn't it? Molly furrowed her brow. "That's random. Why bring that up?" Rick just smiled. "Thought it might be something fun for you and TJ someday." He deflected, smoothly. But his real goal was much sharper: keep Molly in the dark. His alliance with Ava couldn't come to light. Not now. Especially not when they were using Alexis's guilt to line their pockets. The fact that Christina's name was involved made the stakes even higher. One wrong move, and the whole Davis family could implode. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, or at least far enough to feel like it, Jocelyn Jackson Vaughn were sipping cucumber water at the 5 Poppies Spa in Dalmatia, Croatia. It was a luxury retreat disguised as a romantic getaway, orchestrated entirely by Jack Brennan. The trip had the illusion of spontaneity, but it was all part of Brennan's plan: keep Jocelyn out of Port Charles, and more importantly, away from the eyes of anyone who might ask questions. Back home, Carly was already asking those questions. On a video call from the serene Croatian garden, Jocelyn kept her expression serene, but her words were careful. "I just needed some distance, Mom. To figure things out." Carly narrowed her eyes. Distance from what? From me or from Vaughn? There it was. The heart of the issue. Jocelyn hadn't answered yet. Because the truth wasn't simple. Vaughn was charming, patient, and enigmatic. But something about the way he always knew the right thing to say unsettled her. And Carly's constant expectations, the pressure to be strong, to be wise beyond her years, wasn't much better. "I just need clarity," she finally said. But what she needed clarity about was still left unsaid. Back in Port Charles, Christina Corinthos Davis was in full schemer mode. She had Cody Bell right where she wanted him: flattered, broke, and a little desperate. And that made him very easy to manipulate. They'd been circling the idea for weeks now: seduce Ava, earn her trust, then dig into whatever secrets she was hiding. It started as a game. But now Christina was raising the stakes. What about another 10 grand, she said casually, twirling a glass of club soda at the Savoy. Cody raised an eyebrow. You serious? She didn't blink. Serious as a heart attack. He hesitated, but not for long. Deal. This was no longer just about Ava. Christina wanted Cody entangled in a web of his own making, one that pulled him away from her father's orbit. Away from Molly. She'd seen how Molly looked at him, even as she insisted they were just friends. But Christina wasn't convinced. Not for a second. And if she couldn't keep Cody and Molly apart with logic, she'd do it with temptation. Across town, in a quiet studio apartment, Gio Palmieri was sitting close to Emma Scorpio Drake, his voice low and intense. I need you to promise me something, he said. Whatever happens, you keep this between us. Emma looked up at him, concerned. Gio, what's going on? He hadn't told her yet that he'd seen Dante again, his biological father, or how each meeting had gone worse than the last. They'd tried to reconnect, but it was like trying to glue back together shattered glass. Too much damage. Too many years of silence and abandonment. And now, Emma was his only real anchor. But even that was becoming complicated. Emma had been getting too close to Professor Henry Dalton. Gio had seen it. The subtle smiles, the way she laughed at his dry jokes, the nervous energy in her voice when she talked about the professor's research. And worse, she'd stolen Vaughn's facility keys after a late-night lab visit. Gio didn't know what she was trying to prove, but he was terrified she'd get caught. You don't know Dalton like I do, he said. Just, be careful. She nodded, but there was defiance behind her eyes. Elsewhere in the city, at a small cafe tucked behind a florist's shop, Harrison Chase sat across from Brooke Lynn Quartermain, a half-eaten croissant between them. They were trying to have a serious conversation, but Chase's heart was a tangle of guilt and longing. He started, then stopped. We can't adopt a kid until I fix things with Gio. Brooke Lynn didn't say anything right away. Her face crumpled for a split second, and then she looked away, blinking fast. Chase reached across the table, but she pulled back. He's not a kid anymore, she said quietly. He's a grown man with his own life. You don't have to hold yourself hostage to his pain forever. But Chase did. Or at least, that's how it felt. He'd been trying to reach Gio for months now, but the wall between them only grew higher. And the idea of bringing a new child into their lives, pretending like everything was fine, felt like betrayal. Brooke Lynn's voice cracked. Do you think I don't want this too? But if we do it now, Joe's just going to feel even more like we replaced him. Chase didn't respond. Because she was right. He didn't want to hurt Gio. But he was starting to wonder if his silence was doing more damage than good. Tension continued to build behind closed doors in Port Charles, where every conversation was a veiled threat, and every secret had a ticking clock attached. At Alexis Davis's home, the weight of her choices pressed down like a stone on her chest. She paced near her fireplace, clutching her phone, rereading Ava's text over and over. I can help you. Just say the word. Alexis knew better than to trust her. Ava didn't help people without an angle. Not truly. But the alternative, letting Rick and Ava leak the truth, would mean Christina's life could unravel publicly. Attempted murder wasn't something you could explain away, even with motive. Alexis had spent months laundering hush money through Cassadine accounts, making transfers, creating false invoices. At first, it was to protect her daughter. But it had become something darker, a way for Rick to control her. Now Ava wanted in on the arrangement, or so it seemed, and Alexis couldn't tell if that meant she was being offered protection, or blackmailed from both sides. She wasn't sure what was worse, Ava pretending to be a friend, or Rick pretending to be a father. At the same time, Rick was sitting across from Ava at his downtown office, a scowl sharpening his jawline. You contacted Alexis directly, he hissed. Ava leaned back in her chair, cool and collected. I offered her an olive branch. She's not stupid. Neither am I. Ava's tone was clipped. You think she won't figure out you're stringing her along? At least I gave her an option. Rick gritted his teeth. We had a plan. Our plan, Ava said, was to get leverage. Not destroy the entire Davis family. We already have what we need. Rick stood up and walked to the window, his voice low. If Christina gets exposed, everything implodes. You, me, Alexis, and Molly will never forgive either of us. Ava crossed her arms. Then maybe stop gambling everything on dinner dates with your daughter and start thinking 2 moves ahead. There was silence. Tense. Strategic. Neither of them trusted the other. But neither could walk away. Meanwhile, Cody Bell stood in the shadows of the Savoy, watching Ava from across the bar. She was dressed in sleek black silk, martini in hand, effortlessly magnetic. Cody's mission, as arranged by Christina, was simple: seduce, infiltrate, learn. But the deeper he got, the harder it became to separate the performance from his actual feelings. Ava wasn't just beautiful, she was dangerous, intelligent, wounded. And Cody, who'd played the charming con more times than he could count, was starting to forget where the act ended. When she finally turned and met his gaze, her smile curled like smoke. Cody, she purred, gesturing him over. Come have a drink. You look like someone with secrets. He walked over, trying to stay cool. You don't know the half of it. As they talked, Christina watched from the hallway just out of sight, her arms crossed. She'd expected to feel in control of the situation, the puppet master. But now, she could feel the energy shifting. Ava wasn't being seduced, she was dancing circles around Cody. And Cody? He was no longer just a hired hand. The glint in his eye wasn't pretend. She pulled out her phone and texted him. Remember who's paying you. Don't get sloppy. He glanced down. His face didn't change, but when he looked back at Ava, there was hesitation in his smile. Christina knew she needed to act. Fast. The plan had to change, not just to get Ava isolated from Rick, but to get Cody under control before he went rogue. Across town, Gio Palmieri sat alone in his small apartment, staring at the box of letters Dante had left him. They'd only spoken a handful of times, but the words haunted him. I never knew how to be your father. That wasn't an apology. It was an excuse. And Gio didn't need excuses. What he needed was stability. Safety. Someone who showed up. Emma was the only one who had, and now even she was slipping away, toward Henry Dalton, toward trouble. Gio couldn't stop thinking about the key she'd stolen from Vaughn's lab. She'd waved it off as a joke, a dare, but he knew better. She was chasing something, maybe power, maybe answers. Maybe just trying to make a name for herself. He picked up the key and stared at it. He should return it. Destroy it. Do something. But instead, he slid it into his desk drawer and locked it. Then he pulled out his phone and called Emma. I need to see you. Now. Emma met him at the community center. She looked nervous, eyes darting. What's going on? Gio didn't waste time. You need to stop whatever it is you're doing with Dalton. He's not who you think he is. Her jaw tightened. You don't get to decide who I talk to. He's using you. No. You just don't like that I'm finally doing something on my own. He stepped forward, voice rising. You stole a key from a classified facility. Do you understand how dangerous that is? She paused. You told me secrets mattered. That trust was everything. This isn't about trust. It's about you getting in over your head. Emma's lips pressed together. Then, without a word, she turned and walked away. Elsewhere, Brooklyn was on the Quartermain estate porch, rocking slowly on the old swing with a blanket around her shoulders. The night was cold, but her thoughts were louder than the wind. Chase was right, they weren't ready to adopt. Not with Gio adrift. Not with so many wounds left open. But what hurt more was that she wasn't enough to fix it. Inside, Chase was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the adoption agency folder. He wanted a child. A future. A chance to build something that wasn't just made of apologies. But with Gio out there, angry and unreachable, every step forward felt like a betrayal. When Brooke Lynn came inside, she didn't say a word. She just placed a cup of tea in front of him and sat beside him. He finally whispered, "Maybe we wait." Brooke Lynn nodded. Maybe we wait. But they both knew waiting didn't fix the past. It only postponed the reckoning. Back in Croatia, Jocelyn sat on the spa balcony, Vaughn beside her, both wrapped in white robes. He was talking about the future, about backpacking across Europe, about New York in the fall. And she was nodding along, but her heart wasn't in it. Because Vaughn was hiding something. She could feel it. The way he flinched at certain questions, the way his stories didn't quite line up. Jack Brennan had sent them here, but for what? Protection? Separation? Or surveillance? Jocelyn was starting to think it wasn't distance she needed. It was clarity. And she wasn't going to find that surrounded by lavender steam and herbal detox smoothies. That night, after Vaughn had fallen asleep, she slipped away with her phone and messaged Carly. "Something's off. I'll explain soon. Love you." In Port Charles, Carly stared at the message with a frown. Something was coming. A storm. And no one, not Rick, not Ava, not Alexis or Christina or even Chase, was ready for it. Everyone had made a move. Now the fallout was coming. The dominoes had already begun to fall. At the Davis house, Alexis stood frozen at her kitchen island, eyes locked on her phone. A new message from Rick had just come in. "Let's not pretend either of us are innocent. We both protect our children in different ways." He was trying to remind her of their complicity, tie them together with guilt. But Alexis felt something else stirring now. Defiance. She had spent weeks living under the pressure of this secret, the falsified transactions, the fear that someone would discover Christina's attempt on Ava's life. But now, with Ava moving in closer, with Rick growing sloppy, she saw a narrow, dangerous path forward, take control of the narrative before someone else did. She picked up the burner phone she'd kept hidden since this all began and called a number she hadn't used in years. "This is Alexis Davis," she said. "I need to speak to a federal prosecutor. Off the record. Now." If she went down, she'd go down swinging, and she'd take Rick with her. Meanwhile, Christina sat in her car outside Ava's gallery, hands gripping the steering wheel. Cody wasn't answering her calls. Ava had him now, she could feel it. The seduction wasn't just working, it was flipping. And that made Cody a liability. She pulled out the envelope she'd prepared days ago, the one containing the photos of Rick and Ava meeting late at night, and the forged invoices from the Cassadine estate. She'd told herself she wouldn't need it. That the con would work without it. But now she was ready to torch it all. Cody. Ava. Even Rick, if that's what it took. Across town, Ava Jerome was walking the gallery alone. Her heels clicked across the marble floor as she adjusted one of the spotlights. The painting in front of her, an abstract swirl of reds and blacks, suddenly looked like fire. Her phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. "You're being played. Ask Cody what Christina really wants." She didn't react. But her mind moved quickly. Cody had been good, too good. The timing of his flirtation, the charm, the false vulnerability, it all aligned too neatly. Ava's instincts, dulled by the allure of his attention, were waking up again. She texted back, "Let her come to me. I'm ready." The next day, Ava hosted a new gallery exhibit. Guests moved in and out, sipping champagne and praising the art. But her focus was locked on two people, Cody, charming a group near the entrance, and Christina, watching from the staircase like a predator. Ava motioned for a staff member to approach Christina. "Ms. Jerome would like a word. Privately." In the back office, Ava waited with her arms crossed. Christina entered, her face composed. Ava wasted no time. "Why Cody?" Christina tilted her head. "Why not?" Ava stepped closer, her voice soft. Because you thought I'd fall for it. You thought I'd be so distracted, I wouldn't see the knife in your hand. Christina smirked. You still don't get it, Ava. This was never about you. No? Ava asked. Then why did you send me Cody? Why are you blackmailing your own mother? Christina's face changed. Because you people, all of you, think you can bury the past and buy forgiveness. But I'm not letting that happen anymore. A beat of silence passed. Then Ava said, You're your father's daughter, after all. Christina's smile faded. Outside the gallery, Cody stood alone, watching the door. He knew the end was coming, he just didn't know which side would collapse first. In the quiet of the Quartermain estate, Chase walked in from the porch and found Brooklyn standing with her phone in hand, tears on her face. It's Gio, she said. He's gone. What do you mean gone? He left a note. Said he couldn't stay here anymore. Said he was tired of being a ghost in someone else's house. Chase grabbed his keys. I'll find him. But Brooklyn grabbed his arm. No. You need to let him find his own way. Maybe that's the only thing left we can do. Gio, meanwhile, was already gone. He'd taken a bus north. No destination listed. No plan. Just distance. At the final hour, Jocelyn Jacks stepped off a plane at Port Charles Regional Airport, her eyes scanning for her mother. Carly rushed in for a hug, but Jocelyn held firm. I'm not staying long, she said. Just long enough to warn you. Warn me? About Jack Brennan. About Vaughn. About what I saw in Croatia. Carly's heart sank. She knew something had been wrong. Now, she feared it was much worse than she'd imagined. At the same moment, the feds knocked on Rick's door. He opened it with a confident smile. But the agent in front of him only said one thing: You're under investigation for financial fraud and obstruction of justice. We'd like you to come with us. Alexis watched from her car across the street. Her hands were shaking. Not from fear, from adrenaline. She had taken the first shot. Port Charles would never be the same again.